Hey everyone, it's the Kitchen Table Magician, and I want to talk tonight about my red-white aggressive vehicles deck that I made. That is the only standard legal deck I have, and it's the first one I've built in a long time. A friend of mine talked me into doing it. So when Kaladesh was being previewed, vehicles was something I really wanted to try and play with. So I call this one Boros Vehicles. You can see my daughter picked up my deck, but I'll break this one down, show you guys what's in this, how I built it, and then we can discuss a few other ways of building it too that have become popular. Alright, so let's start with the mana base. I did a red-white build, so I just split it 50-50 red and white. Normally when I'm building, I just go to my box and see what's in there for duels, but in the spirit of keeping this standard legal so I could play, I actually had to go out and find 4 Inspiring Vantages, which is the Kaladesh red-white fast land. So normally I don't chase those kinds of things, but like I said, for tournament purposes I went and found them. I also got a couple of needle spires. This works really good a little later in the game. If you're struggling to keep creatures on the table, you can turn this into a creature that can pilot your vehicles, and if nothing else, just become a creature for a couple of additional hits. I've actually won games with this just to get them last couple of points in. Outside of that, it's a 50-50 split, 7 plains and 7 mountains. Then are the vehicles, which are the centerpiece of the deck, and of course we're going to play with the copters because that's what you play with. I got one in my box of Kaladesh, but I had to go find the other 3. But I knew right away when Kaladesh was being previewed that this was going to be a really, really good card. So I got into them cheap before the price of them went up. I don't know if I'd pay the $13 to $12 that they're asking now, but I got into them before they had spiked up. So that was just quick thinking. I also play with 4 Fleet Wheel Cruisers. This is, not only do I love the artwork and the flavor of this thing, but it is very aggressive. It's 5/3 trample with haste, and you don't have to crew it when it comes into play. So it's basically a lightning bolt on wheels. So 4 of those. And that's all I run for vehicles in this deck. There are a few other variations of this deck. One runs the console Flagship, kind of for a late game thing. But I just wanted to be really, really, really aggressive. So I have a lot of 1-drops in here because if you're playing super aggressive, you don't want to miss your 1-drop. So the most important one, I think, is Thraben Inspector, and he's from the Shadows over Innistrad set. He's 1 white, 1/2, and he comes into play, you investigate, and that's kind of important for the other 1-drops because you get a clue token, and that clue is an artifact. And so the artifact is very important for fueling the other 1-drops, which are a 4 Toolcraft Exemplar, which as long as you control an artifact, this creature gets +2/+1 during combat. And that's really, really aggressive for a 1-drop. And so it's important to have that artifact out, and Thraben Inspector does that for you right away as well. Also, I run 3 Inventor's Apprentice, and this guy also gets the +1/+1 bonus for having artifacts out on the table. So those are the 1-drops. There's 11 of them in the deck. And then for 2-drops, most of your really top-tier vehicle red-white decks run 4 Selfless Spirit. I only own 1, and I'm not going to go pay the money for the other 3, so I just run the 1. But I'll show you a budget alternative that I've found that works well to kind of substitute this. But again, 2/1 flying for a 2-drop, and it gives all of your creatures indestructible if you sacrifice it, so it's really, really good. And then also for 2-drop, I have Veteran Motorist, 3/1 for 2, and he has Scry too, which is kind of weird for this archetype. I don't know why that's on there, but it just makes him all that much better. And then he can pilot anything you throw at him, basically. And he gives that vehicle +1/+1 till end of turn, so very aggressive. And then moving up to 3-drop creatures, I do have a Paula, but I actually find her to be the clunkiest card as far as creatures go in this deck. She comes in as a 3/3, can only pilot 1 vehicle. Yeah, she gives the Motorist +1, she gives vehicles +1, but I still find her to be a little clunky outside of that, because the extra ability requires you to tap mana, and usually I'm trying to use that mana for other things, because I've already scried with the Motorist or I've drawn cards with the Copter. So I don't really find that I need this third ability. I do run her just to sideboard her out once in a while. What I do run for a 3-drop is Pia Nailer, which I've gotten a lot more mileage out of this. It comes into play as a 2/2, gives you a 1/1 body alongside of it in the form of a Thopter. So if your board has been wiped and you're sitting on 2 Copters with no creatures, if you play Pia, you can literally pilot both of those Copters immediately, and then with her bottom ability down there, you can actually get other blockers out of the way. If you have an extra vehicle or something, or a clue sitting on the table, you can sacrifice that and get a blocker out of the way. So I run 3 of her because she's just very, very good, in my opinion. All right, on to spells. That's all the creatures and vehicles. The spells are basically generate more creatures. This drops 2 servos, and so again, allows you to pilot 2 Copters right out of the gate if they're sitting on the table for you. I've caught so many opponents by surprise with this thing. People have caught onto this now, and a lot of decks are running it, but I did it early and caught a lot of opponents by surprise with it. Outside of that, the other spells are just to beef up the artifact creatures. Now, this is the one I was talking about. That's the budget alternative to Selfless Spirit. I've actually found this to be a good substitute. It gives a creature +2/+2 till the end of the turn, and if that creature is an artifact, it is indestructible till the end of the turn. So I do run 4 of those. And then lastly, I run 4 of the Built to Smash. Again, 1 red, +3/+3 to an attacking creature. If it's an artifact, that creature gains trample. So even on a 1-drop, if you can turn 2 this, you can potentially get 4 to 5 points of damage out on turn 2 if the attacker is unchecked on the second turn. So again, very aggressive. So you'll notice that this deck, the main build, doesn't really run any removal or anything like that. I did actually build a sideboard for this, and it's pretty much all Kaladesh. 4 Sky Whaler shots, destroy a creature with power 3 or greater. That's for dealing with Gear Hulks and things like that, and it also scries. Harnessed Lightning, some burn. You get 3 energy, pay any amount of energy you want, deal that much to a creature. So some spot removal there. Authority of Consuls. This is a mirror match card. This is a tempo card. I'd like to find another one of these. I just haven't got it yet. But all of your opponent's creatures enter the battlefield tapped, and if a creature enters the battlefield under an opponent's control, you gain a life. So it's a real tempo move in the mirror matchup. Consulate Surveillance. I probably would replace this with a couple of Authority of Consuls. But this just prevents a point of damage from any one source. So somebody's going to try and beat you down with an Aether Flux Reservoir or something like that. But Fragment Ties actually is designed to deal with reservoirs and Copters and all kinds of good stuff for 1 or white. So 4 of those. That's my sideboard, but I probably would make a few changes to that. Some alternatives to this build. If you can't get into the Copters and you're just playing a little more casually, Oval Chase Dragster is an okay sub, and Gear Shift Ace are okay because you can give the Dragster first strike, so you have 6/1 trample, haste, and potentially first strike. And it also will give your cruisers first strike if you just can't get into the Copters, but you still want to build a vehicle deck. Another popular tournament build is to splash black and run Scrap Heap Scroungers. I haven't done that with my deck, but most people do that with an Aether. I can't remember what it's called. It's the land that gives you energy and then comes into play with an energy counter. Aether Hub, I think it's called. I don't have any of those because I sold them because they're an uncommon and they get like $3 or $4 a piece. So I just sold them because I use my booster packs to fund my hobby. So but this is very aggressive, 3/2, and it comes back out of your graveyard recursion. So that's what makes it popular in this as well. But you've got to splash black for the graveyard recursion. So, all right, so that's building around Kaladesh vehicles, and that's my build. And thanks for watching, guys.